Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters for Anfield Index. I probably lied there because it's not a good morning, it's not a good afternoon, it's not a good evening, and it wasn't a good day for Liverpool yesterday as they came down the East Lancs Road to Anfield. And let's be honest, they left with probably more than a share of the spoils. I mean, David, even all this time later, there's not really too much to be positive about, is there, in all honesty, based on yesterday?
No, I think my feelings are kind of easing, in the hours since the game. I think, you come away and your initial thoughts at full time, as I said, really, really, really disappointing. And it is disappointing. I mean, United start the day in 14th place. It's the biggest game for me in the Premier League and at Anfield. And you're thinking, well, it's a really good opportunity to kind of really hurt them and show the gap between these sides. But obviously what you kind of got really was a pretty even game and United playing above themselves and Liverpool probably playing below themselves as well. And you just didn't expect that at all. But then also, I guess, we have kind of got to be, realistic about this as well. I mean, you look at the numbers back from the game and Liverpool comfortably outshoot Man United. They generate far more expected goals. On any other day, they probably win that game 2-1 or 3-1. But also, you've got to balance that with, it never felt like they were completely managing United's threat on the counter. I thought the press always looked late during the game as well. There were kind of defensive issues there. Liverpool's right-hand side defensively was just a big open space for United to run into. So there were quite a few issues there. But, it's one of those where I thought Liverpool were, it doesn't feel coming away from it like Liverpool were the better team, but the fact is they actually were. It just feels like they should have been by far the better team, and that's where the problems come from, because you're up against the side who they absolutely should be beating. So I think we've kind of got to be balanced in how we look at this, and as I say, there were massive issues as much, but also Liverpool probably could have won on another day, and it's just hugely disappointed because it is Manchester United and because of where Manchester United are, and that it was at Anfield as well. So I'm kind of getting more towards a balanced view on it now, a few hours after the game. But yeah, there's no two ways that obviously drawing with that United team at home is very, very disappointing.
Yeah, even all this time later, I'm still struggling. I've got to be honest about it. I just wanted to play you a small clip from Arne Slot and what he said after the game, post-match, just to get your thoughts on this and a bit more.
But of course, we had to do much better in the 2 goals we conceded. But yeah, that's what every manager says. Probably Amorim would tell you that they had to do better in the 2 goals we scored. So yeah, taking control against a team that plays almost every ball into your last line is not as easy as another playing style.
I know he says there about playing the ball into the last line and the playing style, but the one thing I still can't get out of my head, and probably a thing that's still sort of just sticking there in the craw, did you think that, still like me, watching it back, I even watched it again this morning, I still saw Liverpool get outfought and outworked by them at times. That was probably what bugged me the most.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, I think it's been taken a little bit as a dig, hasn't it? What Slot has said there about United being direct, but it's absolutely true. It was a fair assessment of the match, I thought, really. And the United were kind of blasting those balls in long if they could, to kind of turn it into a little bit of a physical battle. And in those conditions, then that makes it a little bit more 50-50 at times. And United really thrived on that. But I also totally agree with you in that, when the game does descend into physical battles across the pitch like that, then you have to win them. And I thought too often Liverpool weren't winning them. They were getting, out-muscled or out-thought in little tight areas, or the press was constantly a second later than it should have been. And again, that's all about being able to really put it in and your work rate. And I thought, it was a bare minimum in these games against United. You've got to match them for physicality because they know that's the only chance that they've got. In terms of quality between the two teams, Liverpool streets ahead at the moment. And so they're always going to turn up and try and make it difficult, which is exactly what Liverpool did in their worst moments in the Premier League and got so many results against United off the back of it. So it shouldn't kind of come as a surprise, and yet it seemed to yesterday. And that was probably, the most disappointing element of the game really is the inability to win physical duels or really commit to the press and then being passed around as a result of it. Just made United look so much better than they were. And it's got to be the bare minimum in these games that you turn up and outwork the opposition or at least match them. I really didn't feel like Liverpool did that. So that for me is probably the main negative of the game, really.
The other negative, I don't know if it's the same for you, it just has this feeling, especially at home, we almost give up the first half to almost suss out the opposition. And we've seen it against Fulham, where it probably cost us, we've salvaged a point. We maybe, I wouldn't say got lucky against Brighton, but we gave up that first half. And it felt like it again yesterday. We just don't get going from the off. And did it feel like, for me, that finally sort of counts against you? You can't keep getting away with just giving up that first half.
Well, that's it, exactly. It's just 45 minutes worth of the game where you could be scoring goals, you could be dominating. And one thing it did for United yesterday is that because Liverpool didn't start that well and United kind of burst out the traps and looked really dangerous, then, that allowed United to settle. It allowed them to kind of quieten the crowd down a little bit, get a few passes off where, or Mainu get a little dribble in where he starts thinking, actually, I can cope in this. They're not going to run all over me. So I think that was kind of, that was a big frustration really, is that you can only get away with that for so long. And also you can only, ask Slot to kind of come up with a way of fixing it in the second half so many times. And again, I actually think this is one of the rare ones where Liverpool weren't much better really in the second half. The point at which they upped it was after conceding 1-0. So, I thought United started the second half as well as they'd finished the first. So, it's one of the rare ones where Slot wasn't able to kind of pull a rabbit out of the hat in that regard either. So if you're constantly asking your manager to do that because you aren't starting games well, then sometimes you're going to come unstuck, and that's absolutely what happened to Liverpool yesterday.
Yeah, there really wasn't a lot to like. And funnily enough, for all the performance and the talk of the team, all the talk is centered around one player, hasn't it? Trent Alexander-Arnold. I do kind of want to talk about it almost on the field and then off the field, sort of put the two together. But on the field, his performance, I mean, it was pretty hopeless yesterday, wasn't it, if we're honest?
Yeah, very, very poor. One of the poorest games he's had for Liverpool, if probably not the poorest, actually, given the stage that it was on. And I really thought he struggled from minute one, really. 0 out of 5 duels won, didn't win a single tackle. I think dribbled past twice. And then, he doesn't kind of mitigate that either by being good going forward. He doesn't complete a single of his 6 crosses, creates 1 chance. He just wasn't offering anything. And I actually take Slot's point that he spoke about, the fact that United were clearly targeting that side and trying to create confusion with an overload on that side, with the midfielder drifting over. Then you would have Dalot with a really aggressive positioning, and then obviously a winger down that side. And Liverpool never really got to grips with that, which obviously is something the manager might want to think about in terms of how he could have better adjusted that. But equally, numerical superiority happens across the pitch pretty frequently. Yeah. And the key is, how do you deal with it? And Trent was so poor in a way that we don't expect from him. I know I've seen a lot of comments coming out that,